Yo, yo, yo! What's up, folks? Bright Evangelist here. This is my first video on YouTube, so kindly welcome me in because I'm not going anywhere. Anyway, I just wanted to welcome you to my channel. This channel is mainly for Christians that are literally ready and willing to move into the deeper things of God. And anybody who's willing to listen, because we're all out here to win souls, and this is the way that He's commissioned me to do so. So I will, and or I will be used to do so. But anyway, let me give you a little bit of background about myself, because I never used to really believe in God. Basically, what happened was I'm from Georgia. I'm living out in Oklahoma now, and basically what happened to me was I didn't believe in God. I was caught up in I had been going to church ever since I was 2 years old. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of Charles Stanley, but he's an amazing pastor. And I went to that church in Atlanta from 2 to all the way to 24 years old. And great church, but I mainly just went to go get women, man. Women were my thing, having sex. And and another thing. So one thing that you'll notice about this channel is that I'm going to be very open, honest, and vulnerable, because that is how the power of God moves. And a lot of people don't see the power of God. And but on this channel, you will experience it. You will experience it. And things will begin to happen in your life because of the simple fact that He is moving through this channel. It has nothing to do with me. I promise. Anyway, wasn't believing. I was going to church, and I was just okay with having the title of being a Christian. And it wasn't until I went off to college at Georgia Tech where my work ethic wasn't enough anymore. And that was when I actually started to have to call out on God in prayer, because I would study. I was always able to surpass people with my work ethic. But during this time period, that just wasn't good enough anymore. So what happened was it got to the point where I started flunking classes. I started flunking tests, and I'm studying my butt off, in one of the best schools in the nation. And that was just unheard of for me. So I said, let me just try this praying thing out. So it was almost like every time that I would pray, it was like He would send somebody to me, whether I had seen this person before or not. And they would just be like, oh, well, we're working on this assignment. If you need help on it, we can help you out, and you can just hang out with us. And sometimes I would see those people again, and then other times I would never ever see them again. So I knew it had something to do with God. And so that was when I actually started developing small bits of faith. And and He's no respecter of persons. If He does it for me, He'll do it for anybody, So anyway, a little bit of time moves on, and I'm conversing with specific people, and I would have deep conversations with these people, and basically they were all saying the same thing, and I didn't realize it was God talking to me at the time. But they'd be like, "Man, you sound like a minister," or "You sound like a pastor." And and this, that, and the other. And I was just hearing that so much to the point where I just kept trying to run from it. I didn't want to hear it because that meant that I had to live a certain way, And I was content having my sex. I was content having my women, and this, that, and the other. And I just felt like if I just didn't get into the Word, if I didn't truly embrace God, then I didn't necessarily have to live that way. So it was just like, well, if I remained oblivious to it, then I'd be perfectly fine, God had a different plan, trust me. And so then after He started sending those people, then He started getting more aggressive. I started having these extreme spiritual dreams where it was like angels, demons, choirs and stuff singing around my car. And, I'll get into those, through videos and testimonies throughout this channel. But I mean, all kinds of stuff just started happening to me, and I was a Christian non-believer, man, And but during this time, I slowly but surely started to believe, and He was calling me to the ministry, basically. And so what happened was, a little bit of time moves on, and I get this job offer from a company out here in Oklahoma. And I visited out here, and I had interviewed out here, and I was just like, man, it ain't nothing out here. It's Podunkville. I'm from the city. I just want to have my women, have my place to live, probably get a little dog, have a nice car, you know, the image that, you know, that's painted upon us, you know what I'm saying? That's shown to us on TV all the time, you know what I'm saying? The little American dream, right? But one thing that I had to realize was that the American dream isn't necessarily God's dream, and that isn't necessarily God's vision for you. We try to put that on God and try to make that our life and have God conform to it versus conforming to God, you know what I'm saying? Anyway, so didn't know whether I wanted to accept the job offer. It was more money than I had ever seen in my life. And, you know, as a college student, that doesn't take very much. So what happened was I was just like, you know what? I don't hear from God. So I thought. But I know somebody who does. So let me call my grandma. So I called my grandma. And she said, you know, I told her the situation. She said, oh, that's easy. Just ask him to close every door that doesn't need to be open and to leave open the door that he wants you to go through. And so I said, okay, you know, that makes sense. And before she got off the phone, she said, I just see everything that you do turning into gold. And I was like, man, I had never heard that before. So I wrote it down in a journal. Didn't think anything of it. I keep a journal in my life. So that's one thing. During that time period, I said that same prayer that she told me to pray. And sure enough, every job that I interviewed at or interviewed for in Atlanta, I wasn't getting a phone call back, nothing. The place out here in Oklahoma kept calling me. Oh, is the offer okay? Oh, well, can we do anything to make it more comfortable for you? What about your living situation? Do you need help with that? You know, whatever. I mean, every week they were calling me. And I said, okay, I guess this is where he wants me to go. So I accepted the job offer. And before I left Georgia, two more things happened to me. My dad was going to get married during that time period, and I hadn't met her yet. But he told me he was going to marry her. So, I mean, I trusted his judgment, of course, you know. Good old Pops. But I wanted to meet her, too. So that Christmas, we had a cookout and at my dad's place, and she was there, and I'm helping out. And I hadn't introduced myself to her, but it was like every time I walked past her, it was like she was looking through me, not at me, you know. And what happened was, so I was just like, man, you know, let me go introduce myself. So I went over there and introduced myself. And I said, hey, how are you doing? And she cut me off. And she said, I'm going to stop you right there. And I said, I only said, hey. And she said to me, she said, I don't know what it is about you, but there's an anointing on your spirit. I said, anointing? I didn't read the word, so I didn't know what that meant. You know, I didn't know that God anointed people for specific things in the Bible and this, that, and the other, and to accomplish this, that, and the other. So I just wrote that down in my journal for the second thing, and didn't think anything of it. Well, right before I left Georgia, the Sunday before I left Georgia, I believe it was May 24th, 2014. I'm at church, and I'm walking past this lady that always sits next to my mom. And I smiled at her, and I went and sat beside her. Her name is Barbara. So I said, hey, how you doing, Barbara? And she said, boy, you got such a pretty smile. And I said, thank you. And right there in the moment, she didn't know this, but I prayed, and I said, Lord, I wonder why you gave me a nice smile. And right after I prayed that, in my head, she turned to me. She said, you know why he gave you a nice smile? And I was like, what in the world? And I was like, no, why? She said, because he wants you to win souls. I was like, win souls? Didn't think anything of it. Once again, I didn't read the word. In the word, it says, he that winneth souls is wise. Didn't know what that meant. Didn't read the word. So I just wrote it down in my journal. Bam. Moved on out here to Oklahoma, May 27th of 2014. And I was outie. I was out here, and I was going to flip this whole place upside down. I live in a small town over here. So I was just like, man, you know, what are the women like? Of course, I was focused on, you know, worldly things. And so I was starting to get established out here And I started dating a lot. And what happened was I really started liking this girl back home in Georgia that I had a class with. And so I cut everybody off, and I said, I want her to be my girlfriend. And so she became my girlfriend. And we were doing the long distance thing for a little while. Bottom line, long distance relationships don't work for me. They may for some other people, but not me. And so, but while it was working, she would fly out here and I'd fly back home and all of that jazz. And then one day we were sitting down and she was flipping through her phone on Instagram or Facebook, I can't remember. And somebody had recorded their TV and they were making fun of this prophetess that said on the commercial, she said, oh, I can tell you who your enemies are. I can tell you all of this stuff through God and all this, that, and the other. And so I was like, ooh, I didn't know what a prophetess was because once again, I didn't read the word. And so I was just like, ooh, she must be a psychic. So I was like, you know what, I'm going to call her and make fun of her. This phone call changed the rest of my life. So I called this lady. Her name was Rosa. And she was living in St. Croix. And so I called her. I'm thinking it's going to be like a hotline. It was this lady's personal number. And so, you know, I'm basically trying to make fun of her, right? I'm asking her all of these questions, you know, how did you know you had this gift and this, that, and the other. I'm building it up so that I could really like make fun of her at the end. And right when I was about to ask her another question, she cut me off. And she said to me, she said, you know God is calling you to the ministry, right? And I looked at that phone and I was like, oh my gosh. I said, yeah. And then she said to me, she said, so why haven't you given him an answer? And I flipped on this lady. I got so angry. And I said, because I'm not living right. And how can I lead all of these people to live right if I'm not even doing it myself? I was like, I'm not going to be a hypocrite. And then she said to me in such a gentle voice that it canceled out all of my anger. She said, if he calls you to do something, he'll prepare you for it. So I said, okay. And so this is where it got really freaky on the phone. Really weird. She said to me, he put an anointing on your spirit for a reason. Everything that you do from this point on will turn to gold. And then she said he wants you to win souls. The 3 things that I wrote in my journal that I maybe told 2 or 3 people, my best friends, and maybe a couple of other people. And she told me a little bit about my spiritual gifts. And then she said to me, she said, oh, I also know that you called me to make fun of me, but you got exactly what you needed to hear. And when I got off that phone, I wrote that down in my journal. And when I broke up with that girl, that was when I started my journey with God. And how did I start my journey? So in John 1:1, it says that in the beginning there was the Word was with God, and God is the Word. So in order to have a relationship with God, you must first begin by reading the Word. Of course, there are other ways of developing a relationship, but the main way is simply just reading the Word a little bit every day. And so that's exactly what I did. I got a Bible reading plan and I started reading the Word. And that was when the journey of the Bright Evangelist began. And that was, and I don't mean to talk about myself in third person or whatever, but that was about 2019 now, so about 4 years ago. 4 years ago. And I've seen some amazing things, and I've seen him do some amazing things throughout this journey, just 4 years, you know. And those are the things that I'll be sharing on my channel. Y'all be blessed, keep God first, and it'll be more to come. Have a good one.